All right, folks, welcome to episode 3 of Talking Cloud. I'm Brett, and
I'm Travers.
that's
Here we go
Travers.
again.
Here we go again. I was trying to point, but I can never. There we go. It's always opposite. Travers. Yeah, we're a little behind this week on timing, but it's been kind of one of those weeks. So here we are at 3 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock. Welcome to the new episode. What we're going to do is we're just going to jump right into a couple interesting tidbits of info we found over the week. So let me just change our view here. There we go. The first thing that... Okay, hold on. It just said audio muted. Okay, I think I'm okay. I see the little audio thing moving. I'm totally now afraid that we don't have this set up right. Yeah. The first thing that I wanted to highlight, let me zoom in a bit here because this is kind of small. Maybe. Come on. There we go. Oh, now I've done it. There we go. That's a little better. The first thing I wanted to highlight was a project that I mentioned in passing last week. We were talking about like cost optimization and stuff like that and some automation. And I had said, hey, on a AWS Twitch stream called Build on Live, they had done a whole like half day, I think it was, on cost optimization and sort of automation in your accounts. And one of the presenters had talked about a GitHub project that they had created, and I couldn't find it during the stream. Right? And I found it. It was totally user error because all I had to do was go to the right page in GitHub because I'm watching this project and I just, in the moment, I couldn't find it. So this is kind of cool. I haven't dug around in it a ton, but essentially what it's doing, let me see if I can find what I want to show you, is you can see here, right? Lambda handler, and it's running basically a describe operation against trusted advisor. It's pulling off some interesting things. It looks like there's some filtering happening here, and then making a connection to Jira and creating Jira tickets.
So just
and
dumping finding directly into a ticket.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. You know, it's interesting to kind of see how you might automate these types of things. And I know, well, we spend half of our life in Jira. I know people either like it or hate it. There's no in between. But if you're in Jira and you wanted some way to maybe take Trusted Advisor, I guess you could do the same thing for Security Hub and stuff like that. Pull that out and dump it into here to sort of start tracking tickets and stuff. That's kind of neat.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the first one.
It's good.
Yeah. The other one that I found, I've been listening to this podcast for a while. It's software defined and software defined talk or something like that. And it just comes up in my Spotify feed now and I listen to it. So it's a really great, just general technology discussion. And they've been talking about open cost. If I'm not misremembering this, I think what it is one of the folks on the podcast is working on this project, and this is an open source cost monitoring solution. And like I said, they've mentioned it a couple times, and it was originally built to help you understand costs for Kubernetes solutions running on, I think it supports all the different cloud providers, but just a way to help you understand how you're actually spending your money. And I guess KubeCon happened this week. And along with that, they had mentioned that they now support other types of cost monitoring within the various platforms. And that's what kind of caught my eye, was like, okay, what else could this thing do if maybe you weren't necessarily just, interested in your Kubernetes costs? Maybe you're interested in understanding some other costs. And you can see here now that they've got, I think this is the link here. So they've got all the setup on how you do this. The cloud cost feature, as it says right here, isn't really sort of rolled into everything yet. They just announced it. And you have to use a specific image that has this additional functionality. But I thought this was kind of neat. You still have to run it on Kubernetes. It's not like a not like
Okay.
some of the other tools out there that you just kind of API in and away you go. So you still, if I'm understanding it correctly, you still need Kubernetes running, and this runs as a container in that Kubernetes environment.
Gotcha. So you deploy it to your cluster and then it picks up. I wonder how it works. Is it picking up actual usage or is it querying AWS
Yeah,
APIs?
they said in here, and I won't be able to find it now that I want. Maybe if I go under here.
Like it could just be picking up cluster metrics, but um, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
curious.
think it's pulling out cluster metrics because they talk about requiring Prometheus, and I guess that's the way they're getting some of
Okay.
the data. But on top of that, I think, damn, I won't be able to find it now that I want. Yeah, I want to say there was some mention in here about the, what is it called, the cost and usage report.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, that makes
I think for
plenty of
the
sense.
like the cloud specific stuff, they're
Yeah.
getting that from other sources. I can't recall now if it's API calls or they're just parsing the CUR reports or something like that. But it kind of caught my eye when they were, or it caught my attention when they were talking about it, because managing your Kubernetes costs is one thing, but then if you've already got that cluster running and now you could extend it to help with other things, I was really
Yeah.
hoping to find like an example screenshot or something like that, because I know last week we talked about is it the Kudos platform, right? The AWS
Yes.
sort of built on QuickSight thing. That's pretty good, right? It's got some nice dashboards and stuff. Maybe we could set this up in our own environment, set up a small EKS cluster just to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I'd like to play around with this,
Yeah.
and it looks like it's kind of doing both, right? Querying the cost and usage and getting actual cluster metrics, which
Yeah.
is nice.
Do you see that on this page? Did I just miss it somewhere on this page?
Maybe we should dig into Amazon Web Services.
Oh, here you go. It'll attempt to pull data from the following: on-demand pricing, spot instance feed, cloud costs if
Yeah.
configured, see below. And then this is where, yeah, so here you go. This is the configuration piece. So it looks like
Okay.
it's using Athena. Oh, here you go. This is it. There's the cost and usage report.
Yeah.
Right. So it looks like it's doing a couple different things. The thing that caught my eye here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say that's neat.
Yeah, it is neat. The only thing that I didn't like, and obviously I don't know what I'm talking about here because this is really the first time I've seen this product, but I don't I always it always makes me a little nervous when I see access keys and secret access keys in the
Yeah.
configs.
Never love to see that, right?
Yeah, but you know what, if it's like this is the first attempt at grabbing non sort of Kubernetes specific costs, then
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if at all in the future you see role information in here, right? So you don't have those hard coded credentials or users
Yeah.
to manage. That would be good.
Yeah, it would be nice not to have to store that in Secrets Manager or Vault or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
see.
And I haven't dug into it. Maybe they've got some fancy way to do
They
that, like
might.
to pull it programmatically somehow or store it somewhere that's maybe a little more secure rather than just having to hard code it somewhere. Because down here, see, this is the Athena configs, or sorry, the full config, and I don't see anything in here that's where your keys are set. So I think we should try to set this up. Like we should set
Yeah.
this up in one of our, maybe in our management account. Just set a small cluster there to try it out and point it at the cost and usage. I'd like to see
Yeah.
some of the screens and stuff. Be neat.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's that one. Those are the two things there. They're kind of a little bit of holdovers from last week when I couldn't find the repo, and then because I was thinking about cost and they mentioned this in the other podcast, I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. Let's add it to our list. And then you gave me this one.
Yes.
Move around here. So what's this all about? Guard duty, machine learning capabilities.
So this is just a quick little piece of news I found on their news page. It looks like they've improved the machine learning detection for guard duty for Kubernetes specifically. So it'll go and pick up secrets now if it can detect anomalous pod spin ups, that kind of thing,
Hmm.
which is pretty handy. So if you're running Kubernetes in the cloud, you should definitely consider enabling, the audit log monitoring and have guard duty inspect that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say, almost a no-brainer, right? I'm sure there's
Pretty
some
much, yeah.
slight additional costs for it because I know you
Right.
pay for guard duty, and then guard duty now has those
Yes.
direct integrations with a bunch of other services. So I wonder, I know it's got doesn't have integration now with RDS, with
Yep.
S3. What's that?
Sorry, just a thumbs up came up on the screen. Some
Oh,
kind
did I
of
did I do that again?
yeah.
Yeah, man, I have to figure out how to turn that off. I only think about it when we're doing something like this, and I lose track of it. I was saying like Guard Duty's already got a bunch of direct integration with other
Yeah.
AWS services. I don't know how it would affect the costs, but I would say that if you're running EKS, this is a no-brainer to have
Definitely
running,
worth
right?
considering at least for sure.
Yeah,
I know they scan EC2 instances for sure and
yeah,
container images as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It makes
So
a lot of sense.
yeah.
Yeah, very good. Perfect. Oh, you made me before I did the thumbs up thing and got distracted. That's a really I can't stop that habit now. I do it all the time. I don't know where it came from. There was something else about guard. If it comes back, we'll come back to the slide to this page.
Okay.
And this is one thing that I came across that again I thought was maybe zoom out here a little bit that I thought was really interesting is the IAM Access Analyzer now supports additional AWS services, and
Oh, great.
very similar to guard duty. I kind of think this is almost like a no-brainer, right? Because
Definitely, yeah.
Access Analyzer does a bunch of things. It does so the first thing, and I think the thing that most people think about, I know this is what I think about immediately, is being able to understand sort of what external resources have access to your account,
Yeah.
right? Doing that
Is there any
analysis.
outbound? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Who or what has access to the account, kind of thing, from outside of what do they call it? Your zone of trust, I think, or something like
I
that.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me is a great little feature. But then on top of that, it does policy validation against best practices. It does some basic grammar checking of your policy docs, and then on
Yeah.
top of that, it will help you practice least privilege by analyzing access patterns and then spitting out example policies for you. So I've only tooled around with it here or there, like the policy generation thing,
Hmm.
but it's pretty slick. Like it takes just a couple minutes. You tell it, you can do this obviously programmatically or through the management console. You basically say, what did I do? Like I said, how many days I want it to go and look at, like the last 30
Yeah.
days or something like that. And what it does is it goes off and finds basically through CloudTrail, all of the activity that's happening and uses that to generate a policy that would make sure that all of those activities or actions that you've done over the last 30 days are still in your permissions documents. So that's pretty cool. Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, this service is one of those. It's kind of just you should just turn this on in your account. Like there's very little downside.
Do you remember, is IAM Access Analyzer one of those services? My immediate reaction is that it does this. Is it integrated with AWS organizations so you can say, turn this on, like at least the the zone of trust kind of thing?
Yeah.
Turn this on for every account within the organization, and then you just get a report that says, here's everything outside of the organization that has access.
Yeah, you
recall?
can set up a delegated admin for Access Analyzer. I just checked. So
Okay. So you
So,
set
yeah,
up trusted
you can do that.
access. What's it called? Trusted access. And then you set delegated admin into another account.
Yep.
Maybe like your security account or something like that, I guess.
Yeah, definitely in your security account, I would
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. And is there a cost for that, or is it IAM free of charge kind of work? Do you know? I'm
I don't
testing
think there's.
your
Yeah, you're
Googling-
testing my knowledge here. I don't
your
think there's
Google
a cost for
abilities.
Access Analyzer.
Yeah, I don't
might
think
Google
so.
it, yeah. But yeah, I'd have to check
Yeah. Okay.
to
Perfect.
be sure.
All right.
Yeah, it's free of
And-
charge. You can
free
use
of
the service
charge.
free
Yeah.
of charge.
Yeah. I'd be surprised, right? IAM is free, so it's just an
It's
extension.
just
of
bundled
that.
in
Yeah.
IAM. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing that thinking about this one is the S3 Access Analyzer, which
Oh
essentially
yeah.
does the same thing, right? It looks to see what buckets are allowing access from outside of the account, what buckets are configured for public access. I think the S3 Access Analyzer requires that you've enabled the IAM Access Analyzer first, but to me that's
Hmm.
another kind of no-brainer. You just turn it on, right?
Yeah. You might as well validate those policies and who's accessing your data, right?
Yeah, I
Just
would
as important.
I would be interested when it comes to the IAM Access Analyzer. Like, I'd be
Yeah.
interested to see if there's any tooling out there or somebody's created some automation where, like, I'll just make a number up. Every 7 days, you run the IAM Access Analyzer in your account against the resources that are there already, and to validate that, yeah, the policies are still not correct, but least privilege, right?
Efficient.
Because it's easy to create it and say this is good, and then people will not look at it for the next year, and is it
Here we
still
go.
valid, right? I don't know if something like that exists. That would be kind of an interesting project to look at.
Coming up with another potential service, right?
Oh my god, no, I'm not. I'm spitballing because I kind of I see the
If
value
you,
of it, but if you're waiting for
yeah,
somebody to remotely or manually run the analyzer, we know in real life how often that's going to get done, right?
right.
Like the
Yeah, that's
first
true.
time because it's cool, and then after that you just have so much work to do that you don't do it again, right?
Right.
Yeah, maybe
That's
maybe the
interesting for sure.
yeah, like just a little lambda function or something that does it for you.
Yeah.
I guess the real benefit would be, do you have enough faith in it that you write the lambda function that does the
Yeah.
scanning every 7 days, and you just take its word for it,
Right.
and on that seventh day, after the first stage is done, you just replace the policies.
Yeah.
That would take some confidence, right?
You would have to. Yeah. You would need to.
Monday
Well,
morning,
that one.
everything's broken.
Yeah, that would be a
Yeah,
fun
yeah, it would be
start of the week.
fun. All right, what's next on the list? Here we go. So here's another one that you shared. If I can get scrolled in properly here. So what do we got? We got an update for SQS and the
Right.
JSON
So
protocol.
yeah, this is another kind of background, just performance update that Amazon pushed I saw this week.
Okay.
So basically, they're swapping the background protocol that SQS API calls are making from the AWS query protocol to the JSON protocol. So if you're running a lot of SQS queries on the back end from various clients using the AWS SDKs, that should speed things up a little bit. So you can look at a performance increase if you have the latest SDK version. So I thought
Yeah.
that was kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, that is neat. So it says here the JSON protocol, blah blah blah, reduces end-to-end message processing latency by up to 23%.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not an
not a
insignificant number,
it's a big
right?
jump.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. SQS is kind of one of those things. Like I know when we teach classes and stuff like that, you're
Hmm.
kind of like, look at all this stuff, look at all this stuff. Oh, by the way, here's SQS and SNS, and then we kind of move on. But I know
Right.
in real life, like when we're helping customers with stuff, like SNS and SQS are kind of like, they're just really important services to help you kind of
Yeah,
build those loosely coupled architectures. They're easy to use. They're insanely cost effective.
it's the glue, right, for
Yeah,
the applications, right, for cloud serverless apps.
yeah, it's exactly it. Yeah, I think they kind of get overlooked,
Yeah,
especially
for sure.
if you need a queuing service. Like, I know we've worked with people in the past. They're always like, "Hey, let's install this other queuing solution of some sort." And I realize that in
Yeah,
certain situations, that's warranted because you've got a particular feature or something that you need that SQS doesn't do. Totally makes sense. I think sometimes though it gets overlooked. Like, it does exactly what you want it to do. It's highly available. It scales. It's super easy to use. It supports
yeah,
encryption. It's going to do what you need for a lot of different types of workloads, right?
yeah. For most workloads, it's probably more than enough.
More
I
than
think
enough.
the alternative is what, manage Kafka or running your own Kafka cluster. So
Which seems unless you need all of those kind of more advanced features that you're going to get with some other queuing service, right?
Yeah.
It seems like now you're taking on, I guess if you do the managed implementation, then obviously you're still offloading some of that work to Amazon. And if you need those more advanced capabilities, it makes sense. I think the other thing about SQS is it's insanely cheap. Like I can't remember, don't they bill you in millions of messages or something like that on a standard queue?
Yeah, it's pretty cheap. But you'd have to, I guess, once you get to maybe like millions of users scale, it probably makes more sense to have your own clusters running. But
yeah. So here, I'll put you on the spot again. I know we've used SQS a couple times. Can you think of like any, and I know not on that type of a scale, but have you run into anything specific that you could think of that would be like, I know when we did X, we had to be careful of some specific thing, or is SQS really as easy as they make it sound, like as far as implementation goes?
there's some gotchas with the order messages can arrive in. So depending on your use case, you might want to implement a first in, first out queue versus a regular queue. So it really depends on whether order is important or not. But that's the main real gotcha.
Yeah.
There's two separate versions of the service to handle that.
Yeah, standard is the default, right? And then you've got
Yeah.
the FIFO queue if you're concerned about the order of those messages, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, like you said, it's like 40 cents per million requests. So depending on the scale of your app.
It's pretty cost effective.
Yeah, especially if you're just like if you're a serverless startup or a small business, that's nothing, right?
Yeah, no.
But if you get into like a huge org scale, it might start
Yeah.
adding up.
Okay, here's another pop quiz for you. SQS is
Okay.
a regional service. Is there any, like I noticed the other day, and the reason I'm thinking about this is because we were looking at something with EFS, and EFS now supports cross-region replication. So you can create an EFS file system in region A and then set up replication over to region B. Does
Okay.
SQS support anything like that, or is it like regionally specific, and then if that were to go away, you'd have to recreate it somewhere else? Or does it have replication? Do you know?
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure.
I don't think it does.
I wonder if you can fan out to various regions.
Oh, you know what you could do? I guess in theory, what you could do is put SNS in front of it, and couldn't you then fan out from SNS to SQS queues in multiple regions, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. You could. I mean, you could definitely spin it. You could architect your system in such a way that your queues are situated in multiple regions
Multiple
for
regions.
sure.
Yeah.
And then you just fire them off
Yeah.
your messages to the various queues. But yeah, it's accessible in every region, right? You just have to specify which region that you're using
Which
in the
region?
client.
Yeah, and it's just an HTTPS call, isn't it? Right.
Can
Point
be,
off to
yeah.
the queue URL or an API call.
Yep, depending on how you're doing it.
Okay. And the last thing is the beast of the document here. The
beast.
AWS Security Reference Architecture. Originally created, I looked this up ahead of this call, and then I forget. I want to say that it was like created in 2021. Here we go. Document history. I'm looking right at it. Yeah, there we go. Initial publication 2021. And I often refer to this document, and why it grabbed my attention this week was because if I go back to the document history, major update happened in November, and you can see kind of what they've changed. So they updated some of the account best practices for both the network account and the application account. Okay, so to include some additional support for new services, or not support, I should say, but sort of how to approach those services, some additional security info, new guidance around AI and machine learning, and then also sort of how could you do this in a phased manner? Because I think one of the things that can be a little intimidating with this is it's a huge document, right? And this idea of taking it as in a phased approach probably makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah, otherwise it can be intimidating, right? And then you end up just getting overwhelmed and not doing anything, and just kind of leaving things as they are. So this is what caught my eye. This document to me is kind of like very similar along the path of some of the, or the conversations we've had today is kind of almost a no-brainer. I think this is a fantastic reference doc that you really should. I don't think you need to read it end to end, but poking around in it, pulling out some of these building blocks on structures for your organizations and your account layouts. They've also got really great, like if I just go here, right? They've got these nice diagrams that say, okay, in the security account, this is what you should deploy. They go into all of this in a pretty easy to understand. I was trying to find you the other picture. Pretty easy to understand approach that you could, it's very prescriptive in the fact that you could simply walk through it, follow the instructions, or do some additional reading to kind of figure out maybe where you're a little unclear and then kind of work towards it. So I thought this was an interesting document that probably should be on everybody's reading list.
Absolutely. Definitely a great reference tool. Like you said, if you need to go and brush up on the best practices, it's a good place to do it.
Yeah. And then also this, just because we were talking about IAM earlier on, for best practices, links off to other documents. So very similar to kind of how they approach the well-architected framework, right? Where it's guidance and then references off to other things to help you learn more about how things might work or how you decide to implement something according to what you need to do, right? So, very good. Perfect. Anything else that you stumbled across before we wrap it up?
What else did I stumble across this week? Oh, there was some huge news in generative AI, not AWS related.
Yeah.
But more ChatGPT related. So you can
tell.
You can now, or rather, they've released the beta that allows you to design your own agents in ChatGPT without any coding. So you can go in and specify what you want this agent to do, and say you want to make like an AWS expert. You can say, I'm going to make an AWS expert bot, and then you have access to that, and you can make it globally available, which is kind of crazy.
And you don't have to host it? Like, is it hosted on their platform somehow, and you just make it available for people to use?
From what I know, it's hosted on their platform, and people can use it based on. And I think they have to pay, or maybe a portion of the API fees go towards it. But
that's really cool. I think I heard about that, but I didn't really look into it. So you can basically create your own implementation for a particular use case then.
For whatever you want. Yeah, you can upload documents to give it context, that kind of thing.
And you said it's beta right now?
Yeah, it's in beta. It's not generally available.
Okay.
But coming soon.
So. That is pretty cool. It'll be interesting to see what people do with it.
Yeah, right?
Right. Yeah, once it becomes available. And it would also be interesting to see like do you just have to subscribe to ChatGPT? Like, what is ChatGPT worth? $20 a month, $30? Like, I don't even know.
Pretty much, yeah.
So is that like a different plan to get access to that, or are they going to give that out for $20 a month and then you just
who knows,
go wild, right? Yeah.
Kind of at OpenAI's mercy on that one.
I guess, yeah. It'd be interesting to see how they approach that. Is it just included in the paid version, or is it some sort of other option that you would have to sort of add to your paid account or something like that?
Oh, I'm sure they'll find some way to.
Yeah, you got to monetize it somehow, right? Can't keep giving everything away for free. I know, the free version of it is still.
Still crazy.
It always blows me away, right? Like when I ask it something, I'm like, what the, right? And 9 times out of 10, it's pretty accurate. You'd always want to validate or verify that info, or test your scripts or anything that you might be using to get you started. But hey, it's still pretty impressive, right? It'll be interesting. You just made me think of something. So reInvent's coming up in what are we, November 10th? So 2 weeks?
2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, roughly, right? Like end of November. And yeah, I've been to a number of reInvents, not going this year. And I always kind of walk away from reInvent and think to myself, it always seems to have a theme, right? It's like I know it's not a themed event, but if you sit and watch the keynotes, sort of the keynotes are all sort of not very like specific on the theme, but if you think about it, you can kind of see how they're all sort of talking about the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And saying, hey, they're kind of, I always called it crystal ball gazing, right? You can kind of sit there and listen to the keynotes and formulate your own thoughts on sort of what AWS believes the next 6 to 8 months might look like, and based off of how they're talking about things. And it'll be interesting to see this year what the theme is. I would have to suspect it's all going to be Gen AI, right? So, we lost Travers. Well, hang on. He's back. Maybe. There you are. Welcome back.
Connection dropped.
I was just saying, I don't know what you heard, but I said that all the reInvents I've been to always seem to, they feel like they have a theme to them. And
this year's theme.
Yeah, this year's theme has got to be AI, right? Gen AI. It has 100%. To be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they do. I think it's all going to be Gen AI.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think Werner's going to talk about it, and we're going to see like 3 or 4 keynotes on it probably.
You know what? Sorry, I'm going to keep you around here for one more minute. Give me a second, because I actually just realized as we were talking that I had another link I wanted to share that didn't get onto this list for somehow. I think we might have lost Travers again. Oh, Travers, you still there? Let me find this link. How did I miss this one? Here it is right here. Oh, I didn't miss the link. It's right here. This is what I was thinking about. Okay, so Simon Wardley, if you're not familiar, he created something called Wardley Maps, and I'm by no means an expert. Essentially, though, let me zoom in. It's a system that he developed, a mapping system to help you with strategy and stuff. And if you're not following him on X, I guess, it's definitely worth. Yeah, it's still Twitter. I know. I'm trying to train myself not to call it Twitter all the time, but I can't really help myself. But he does these little kind of conversation threads and chat. This is GPT Builder, which is related to, I think, the announcement that you had just mentioned, right? And he kind of goes through this conversation, and I thought it was really interesting down here. Right? Like, first off, right, I watched them build an application by just speaking to an AI in 2018. So, okay, this kind of stuff's been around for a while. What gets you excited? I like how he says, you mean interested? AWS moving into the space. And I haven't read through these articles. I just grabbed the thread and kind of scrolled through it quickly. But I love this. I expect this to be an all guns blazing sort of situation. And I would say that you kind of already have that feel just with conversations that you have with AWS. It's kind of all about, well, what's happening with Gen AI, right? So this is an actually really interesting little thread. And by no means is it a huge one, but I can kind of see he's doing some crystal ball gazing already. You can see here, AWS and OpenAI will both pursue industrialized services built on custom silicon, right? So they won't be, they'll be building their own chips probably very quickly if they, I don't know, AWS is already doing that, aren't they? Isn't that like...
Yeah, they're making those Graviton chips, and we're probably
they have the
working on some kind of GPU architecture.
Yeah, and they have those chips for machine learning already, right? So, yeah, I thought this was kind of neat, but you can see here, realize that this is a battle. The winners and losers in the space normally get decided over a 5 to 8 year time frame. And then somebody else shows up and says they did all the hard work, right? So I forgot about this one, and then you just jogged my memory as you mentioned the announcement from OpenAI. So perfect. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we leave it here and enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Perfect.
See you, Aaron.
Bye for now.